Hi, Ed Up Canada listeners. Before we start today's episode, I want to introduce you to one of our sponsors, eLoft Careers. If there's one thing I consistently hear from schools, it's the challenge of helping students transition from the classroom to the workforce. That's where eLoft Careers makes a real difference. They offer online, on-demand job search courses designed specifically for students, teaching them how to build standout resumes and cover letters, master interviews, and navigate today's job market with confidence. What really stood out to me is how practical and focused the platform is. I've had a chance to explore it myself, and honestly, it's the kind of career support I wish I had had when I was just starting out. Schools already using eLoft Careers are seeing improved employment rates, strong student engagement, and receive positive feedback, especially around how confident students feel entering the job market. Want to see for yourself? You can actually try it with a small group of students for free. Just reach out to info@eloftcareers.com before August 15th to set up a pilot. To learn more, visit eloftcareers.com. eLoft Careers, teaching job search skills that work.
We did a study with American Airlines earlier this year. 25% of their new hires over the last 2 years, 25% of their hires came from our schools.
That's
AIM
incredible.
schools.
That's incredible. How can a set of skills lead you down the path to success? That's what we're setting out to answer on the Ed Up Canada podcast. I'm your host, Michael Sangster. Join me as we unpack how leaders around the world have taken training and skills and turned that into a lasting career. Now let's learn together. Welcome back to the Ed Up Canada podcast. I'm Michael Sangster, your host, and I am joined today by a gentleman who grabbed me, put me in a chair, and made me talk to him in Kansas City a couple of years ago at the end of a conference because he really, really wanted to talk about Canada and opportunities. And we haven't figured out how to do it yet, but we're going to. I'm joined today by Joel English, the President Emeritus of the Aviation Institute of Maintenance and the CEO, President, Board Chair of English Advisory. What other titles? VP Business Development of
I think you got it all.
Advisory, and a good friend, a gentleman I've gotten to know through CQ in the U.S., our partner. But I wanted to have him on to talk about life. But before we do that, Joel, introduce yourself and your experience.
Thanks for the intro. And yes, you're right. When you showed your face in the States 3 years ago or so, you said, I think there's a possibility for collaboration. And I said, well, let's do exactly that. And I guess the warmth that we've shared, not only you, but also the members of your organization with the members of ours, it's now us. There's no them, there's only us. And so thank you for the collaboration and the growing spirit. So yeah, really quick, my background is started with full-on academics. I have a PhD in English from Ball State University and was professor of English and distance education.
The home of David Letterman? The home of David Letterman?
Right. Exactly right. We've got David Letterman and Jim Davis, the Garfield guy at Ball State. Proud of both of those alums. And so became an English professor at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. And that's where, for about 4 years, I taught as a professor and developed a problem. The problem was I had a great time with my English students, teaching Shakespeare, teaching classical Greek rhetoric, certainly a lot of writing instruction. My problem was my students seemed to graduate and go to compete for 0 jobs. There just wasn't a place for someone to take a 4-year degree in English other than the next 2-year degree, a master's degree in English, and maybe the next 5 years after that is a PhD. Really, there wasn't something they could go to. And I started to develop a little bit of a moral dilemma about that. And that's when I found career education, the type of education that's just long enough for a certification, maybe a short degree, but just enough to get a job and immediately make personal revenue, immediately paying off whatever small loans there might be. And so for the last 25 years, I've been in career education. Most of that time with Centura College and Aviation Institute of Maintenance. AIM is the largest group of aviation maintenance schools, as it turns out, in the world. 15 campuses, about 6,500 students, all pursuing an FAA certificate to become a licensed aircraft mechanic. And then we have about 30% of all students in the United States are attending the AIM campuses. So that's where we made our biggest niche. Since then, was able to be elevated in the position called President Emeritus earlier this year, which means I really do a lot of going on the road and supporting the aviation industry. And as you also mentioned, doing that in the form of English Advisory, a new consulting firm that I'm proud to be a part of.
A certain irony, of course, that you, which I didn't realize till today, that you taught English, English. I'm sure not the first person to notice that. And I just listening to you talk about AIM, there's a passion, obviously, that I know that you have for that organization. But as we know, our sector is all fly-by-night, little investments, very, very terrible little campuses on the corner of the roads, right? That's what people tell us. You say 14 campuses?
15 AIM campuses. Yep.
The annual spend in that organization would rival at least medium-sized, but large-sized businesses.
Yeah, absolutely.
I get so frustrated when people talk about this little career college sector. All you do is graduate people out who go out and create jobs and have careers. I always like to say they end up having careers, not jobs.
Well, sure. I mean, if you want to call rinky-dink operations like United Airlines, Delta Airlines, American Airlines, British Airways, Saudi Airlines, and plenty of others, small outfits, we are where they come from. We did a study with American Airlines earlier this year. 25% of their new hires over the last 2 years, 25% of their hires came from our schools.
That's
AIM
incredible.
Schools.
That's incredible.
And in fact, if you put together we've got 15 schools and there are another 15 or so private schools like us. If you put those 30 schools together, we have more students than all community colleges and universities combined in the United States working on this degree because we focus on it. We do it well. And our airlines and manufacturers, we're talking Gulfstream and Bombardier. I've been to your Bombardier campus there in Toronto, and just being a part of manufacturing and maintenance is just we're able to really make a true mark in aviation.
Well, as you know, I spent a few years of my career in the aerospace business, and I have an understanding for it. But talk to us about the job need in the United States. And I'm going to just give you a stat that came across my desk this morning, but not aviation, but we're going to be 700,000 skilled trades short in Canada soon. Workers, we're a 40 million population in Canada. We're going to be 700,000 short skilled trades workers. It's unsustainable.
Yep. So Boeing does a study every year, and every year that, unfortunately, the numbers get more stark. Last year it was at 690 worldwide aviation mechanics we would need. This year it's over 700,000 over the next 20 years. So basically that means 35,000 mechanics every year. The FAA is minting only about 9,000 per year. And of course, EASA in the European countries and the Canadian Aerospace Administration all have certification processes. But when it really comes down to is we have about half as many students as we need graduates. And so it's a great time for anyone and everyone who wants to do quality aviation training to get into it and go full force with it.
How much more capacity do you have at AIM to take on new students?
We're at about 60% capacity, but that's because we add a school every year. So for the last 5 years, we've added a new campus in towns like Chicago, Illinois, and 3 years ago, last year it was Phoenix, Arizona. The year before that, it was Newark, and the year before that, it was Charlotte, North Carolina. So we go where the large aerospace companies have a hub, and we partner with them and say, hey, we're going to bring your school to town to make sure you have the technicians that you need. And the reason that other schools can't really do that is because, like in the United States, usually a community college or a university is owned by the state itself. And so they have no interest in going outside the state lines. They only do business or operate within their small vicinity. So it takes really an enterprising group like us to say, yeah, we're not going to stop at the borders. We're going to go further. And that's really, Michael, why I walked up to you 3 years ago and I said, I'm not going to stop at the borders. I'm here to help Canadians as well. And frankly, in any country and any partner who needs good aviation maintenance training, we want to partner with.
And we just haven't figured out yet, but we will. We're going to find hangar space. We're going to find partners. And we know there's a need in the aerospace aviation industry plus government I did a little bit of work around aviation search and rescue aircraft with the government of Canada, and they've got just the same need for engineers. So talk to me about the kind of graduates that come out of AIM. And before you do, for someone who is the president emeritus, you've still got a passion for the organization. You haven't walked away without the passion, have you?
I guess that's like, I don't know what to compare it to. Yeah, it's in my blood. And
Like being a Dallas Cowboys fan, to give you an American reference, once you're a fan, you got to still be a fan no matter how bad they are.
I wouldn't conclude that way.
Yeah, you're right. I wouldn't do that way.
AIM is doing great, and I'm a senior advisor for them. And, that will always be, the bottom line is, as I've transformed families over the last 23 years at AIM and offered people a way, I want to talk about where we locate our campuses here in a minute, but I see education as a way to transform families and give them a chance to either join a strong middle class or go from a middle class to a higher, to elevate everybody. And when you do that for a couple of decades, there's no getting it out of your system, right? It's who I am.
So let's pound through this. Biggest program?
Aviation maintenance.
Cost, roughly?
Roughly $50,000 for tuition and fees.
For how long?
2-year program, 22 months.
Starting wage?
$85,000 is typical.
Pretty good return on $50,000 if that's your first year.
Yeah, our median debt is about $20,000, depending on the campus. And so think I've paid $50,000. I'm earning almost twice that in my first year. And my debt is about $20,000. And so I'm earning quadruple that in my first year. Hey, I will go all the way. And that was my problem 25 years ago when I was an English professor. And I'm looking at these folks spending 4 wonderful years with me, going in debt $120,000, and going to work at the exact Starbucks I grabbed my coffee at, and I just couldn't do it.
Hopefully they did not go back and get a master's in theology to double down and have absolutely no career path. But that is exactly the point of what these colleges do in the career education sector, and that's a longer program. And
exactly.
For good reason. Work placements going on while you're in that as well. Employers standing there watching you, ready to hire you.
100%. We do not finish our job until somebody is working in field. I had the opportunity to spend some time over the last month with 4 of our graduates. I want to talk about this project we're doing. Because
I was going to go there. I know I was in the seminar in Las Vegas where it was awe-inspiring.
So this is not AIM's movie. This is your movie. This is everyone's story. About 2.5 years ago, I worked with a group called Aurorus Media, and they are a group of professional documentarians. They have about 4 different documentaries. You can watch them on Netflix. 3 of them won awards, and we're at the Sundance Film Festival, just top quality thing. I said, look, I represent an industry, aviation maintenance, that needs to double its size. We need about twice as many aircraft technicians as we're putting out each year. And I know how to do it because only 3% of aircraft technicians are women. So if we could suddenly make as many aircraft technicians as women as we have men, we will have doubled our size and solved the problem. And so I'm on a mission to show the women of our world that aircraft technology and aerospace is a great avenue for them, a great place to go to work. And so Aurorus Media said, well, can we follow them around some? And so where they wanted to come and see the story, and we agreed that there was a story here. So for about 2 years, they came to my campuses and found some subjects that went from interested in aviation to enrolling in school, graduating, getting certified, and now working. And we're telling the story of this documentary in a film called Tradeswomen. Tradeswomen has now concluded in its filming. It premieres at the National Association for Women in Aviation Maintenance Conference in Dallas on September 26th. And then it'll be available in streaming nationwide from there. This story was one that, please do not categorize this as a hyperbole. I am trying to change the world here. The only way we can double the amount of aircraft technicians is if we find a way to double the amount of interested people. And my employers, American, United, Boeing, Bombardier, they all say, I'll hire as many certified female technicians as you can possibly put through. So We want to change the lives of our students for the better, of our mothers across the planet together, as we change the course of history of aviation and aerospace. And so we're doing it with this project.
So talk to me about the college in Chicago, because there was a lady from that institute. That was not the wealthiest neighborhood in Chicago where that institute is it?
So I put our campuses not where I would like to necessarily go for a great dinner on the town. I put them in neighborhoods that need me. So you're talking about our second newest campus in the south side of Chicago. South side Chicago is known as one of the traditionally more violence-ridden areas of our country. And we put it on 37th and Ashland Avenue, which is about a mile away from the White Sox Stadium, the heart of south side Chicago. And I put it there, one, because I knew that with two major airports, O'Hare Airport and Midway Airport, two international airports, there was also 0 aviation schools. Can you believe two major airports, no aviation schools, and yet this desert of people who need opportunity? And so we put this in Southside Chicago, and the school is right around 400 students now. These students graduate at a higher graduation rate than any public college in Illinois. They are getting certifications, they're getting jobs, and in fact, 3 of the, we'll just call them movie stars, right? 3 of the students that we filmed as part of this film are from the Southside Chicago School. All of them. One of them now working at an airline, one of them working at a literally building NASA space suits at a private firm, and the third one is a pilot, now in piloting school. And so these underprivileged women of color in the South Side have found a new life in aerospace through our school. And when you see tradeswomen, when whoever's listening, you're going to see the Tradeswomen movie, and you're going to see Josie. Josie is a 20-year-old Hispanic girl from Southside Chicago who has both a pilot license and a mechanic's license. This gal's going to make over $100,000 next year when she launches into her career. She is a star at 20 years old.
At 20 years old. When is the movie coming out?
So we launch it officially on the 26th of September. And then the streaming service that we're choosing will decide when and how it launches out.
I've made a note of that date in my calendar still. I'm waiting to be told what city to be in.
Awesome. It'll be Dallas, Texas, and I will invite you. Absolutely. Because
that is going to be a special occasion. The energy in the room was quite interesting. And we were all a little tired, a little early. It was, firstly, it was late morning, early morning sessions. The attendance was a little bit lower in Las Vegas. So, and I appreciate your comment earlier about us being one kind of group now after 3 years. I remember showing up at the first event in Kansas City, and we got to the registration desk, and Kelly Blanchard looked at me and said, "We've given you the presidential suite in the hotel." And I said, no, there's less Canadians. Give it to Jason Altmaier. And she said, "We think you'll put it to good use." And about an hour and a half later, there was about 100 people in the room, and hotel security thought maybe we should just bring it down a notch. The events have become quite fun, but there is a lot of work going on in the hallways. A lot of partnerships have been developed.
Well, absolutely.
And I truly believe we will create one between AIM and a Canadian college and bring you guys north, because there is such a demand. I see it every day. We're seeing it. And it's interesting. One of the things that we had flights during post-COVID canceled because of flight crew. Now seeing canceled because of aviation maintenance engineers, right? Not enough are available to keep the planes moving.
Well, we all know that when we're at the bridge and we're waiting for the plane to be pushed backwards and there's a delay, we don't want to hear what we hear. And that is the pilot saying the word maintenance, because the word maintenance means some other crew member. It means waiting for somebody to get shuttled from a completely different part of the airport. We know they'll have a vest and a clipboard. We just know how long it's going to take, to do that. And I will tell you, the more people retire, because the average, did you know the average age of the working aircraft maintainer right now is 57 years old? So that's the average age.
That's not a good trend line.
The problem's getting worse. That's right. That's how Boeing, was able to say, we think we've got delays now. We're going to get killed here because they're retiring out. And obviously this is not a role that you can do the heavy lifting when you're over, a certain age. So
we're on a trend line in Canada by 2030, where in the 90s we had 70 workers for every 2 retirees. In 2030, we will have 2 workers for every retiree. And we are an immigration nation who has cut back on immigration, but we need to open the doors wide up. We need a workforce. We need to get people here. We need to train them. And we need to train them in the kind of programs that career colleges do. Short, 6-9 months, get them to work, give them a career path, and then ladder them. We need to do a better job of laddering people up to future. You can't ask someone to be a support worker in a long-term care unit for a long time. But giving them some kind of future. Some are very happy to do that work. They love that work, but you got to give them a path to being a nurse. You got to give them a path to go back to school and become the next thing. I'm blown away by this 20-year-old girl who just did both to start. It's unheard of.
Absolutely unheard of. I literally think she will probably be, the first Latino Southside Chicago woman at age 20 with both licenses. It's just, how is that even possible? It's what we have.
And I love the movie. You're going to use that to inspire the next one. And hopefully there's 10 of them in 10 years.
It's interesting. We have an idea. Notice we didn't call it aviation women or women in aerospace. It is tradeswomen, because this story, the lack of female participation in such a range of skilled trades, can be told many, many times. And so we have the idea of really finding a way to maybe multiply the story by many trades that kind of are in a similar situation.
I completely agree. And there's such a huge need for more women in the trades. And we're seeing more of that. There's been a lot of great government programs in Canada along those lines supporting that. Little things that can be done, tool subsidies, home care subsidies, those kinds of things to help them get back out into the marketplace. So
the thing that we found, though, the thing that seems to make the biggest difference in a female making a decision to start and making a decision to continue with the program is mentoring. Yes, there are financial pieces and so many different, but what I see, and you'll see it when you see the film, because I saw it right in front of my eyes, when a young woman sees a mentor who did it herself, she says, oh, then I can too. There's something about that mentoring that is so important in women coming into a trade where they're underrepresented. Just a quick vignette of something that is still amazing. One of the female characters in the movie, her name is Adela, a wonderful person. She's the one that building spacesuits and defense suits for people when they're above atmosphere where blood no longer circulates. She's creating the tools that circulate their blood. It's amazing. So Adela, she was selected to be by United Airlines to be on an all-female competition team. So one of the acts of the film is watching them compete. She's one of the group called Chick Fix. And meanwhile, she had previously met the VP of maintenance for American Airlines. And Adela came to me and said, I was selected for the United team. I need to get your advice on this. I was selected with the United team, but I don't know if I want to do it. I said, well, my goodness, why not? And she said, because I don't want American Airlines to be mad at me. Now, I heard that and I said, okay, we're going to make them as jealous as hell. That's exactly what it is. Because what we want is you to have a job offer from both of those organizations and you get to make your pick. So if you think they might get mad, yeah, we're going to go for it, right?
And I noticed in the film, and it triggered me back to the career education sector, there was a senior head of maintenance for United or American who was in, a lady teaching those students and spending time with them too.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
That is lost about our sector, that hands-on practical placements that go on, but also the little conversations that happen in the coffee room were just little mentoring moments. So I'm going to move forward here because we ask every guest, and you open the door, to talk to us about a mentor in their career, someone who's made an impact, someone who's changed their path. And I'm going to ask you to outline who that individual might be.
Yeah, it's easy. His name is Michael Klein. Michael Klein was my writing professor in college. I went to the University of Arkansas at Little Rock. I'm actually in Little Rock right now in Arkansas, visiting the school, visiting Michael, as it turns out. So Dr. Klein, I had him in a writing class when I was a freshman, enrolled probably in 3 or 4 more. He had this amazing ability to find what makes you tick, find it in your writing, and make you develop your writing as a craft that you never wanted to leave. You didn't want to do wrong. You didn't want to leave anything on the table when it comes to that written product. he was always complimentary and yet always challenging to get it better, to get it more. He actually told me one time this weird bit of advice. I had this essay going, and he was looking at it and saying, there's this image in here that you keep toying around with, and I think it's getting it in the way of the paper. And I said, no, that's the part I like best. That's cool. I need more of that. He said these words. He said, sometimes when there's an element in your writing that seems to rise above everything else, you might want to consider cutting it out altogether, because maybe it's getting in the way of the excellence around it. Now, that bit of advice has followed me through all 35 years of professional life after that. There have been times when I've had a project that seems to get all of my attention. That project seems to be better than everything else going on. But what's actually happening is it's stifling all of the other important things, and I've had to take that and sidetrack that project. There have been people where that seems like the smartest person that I have working for me. Love that person's mind and their energy. And yet I find myself devoting so much to that person, it's actually stifling the teamwork and collaboration around that person. I have to find a way to de-emphasize what I thought I was sort of infatuated with. So my answer to you is Michael Klein, this man who could see you, knew what made you tick, made you want to work hard, and did it with encouraging motivation, but also made you be critical about the things that you love the most. That has drawn me, really formed my entire leadership style. So if I have any employee who says, man, Joel was motivating, but also challenging, it made me rethink everything all the time. Yeah, I got that from Dr. Klein.
It's an interesting perspective because it's a kind of mode I try and be in. But what I do have to challenge myself is that it doesn't be viewed as a negative or come with an edge to it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
I talk about the need for constant improvement, continuous, constant, little, tiny steps that make an organization improve. Not everybody's ready for that. And sometimes I can come across, I know myself, I can come across a little negative while I'm in that process. So I got to watch that, or almost angry. And we all have our weaknesses, and that's one of them. So do you think does he know you're a mentor, that he's your mentor?
He does. I have this routine. If I'm ever doing a talk, I talk about teachers. And one of the things I say is this: I'm a university president. He was a faculty member, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I always say is this, and everyone who hears this is going to know it's true. You don't remember your college president's name, but you sure remember your teachers.
Yep.
Right? That's absolute fact. And that carries with me. In fact, if you were to go to my new consulting site, EnglishAdvisory.com, I welcome you to go and click on my blog. And the first blog entry you will see is really kind of a kudo to Dr. Klein, who formed me. It's just a little story in an object.
My favorite thing about our sector, and I haven't been to an AIM graduation, but it's the energy at a career education graduation. It is different from anything else you've ever seen.
Yeah,
I just had a couple gentlemen on the last edition, and one of them is Mitch Talentfield, who you know well, and his partner in crime on their study, Stuart, who was talking about their graduations. He says, it's louder than any hockey game you've ever been to. It's the loudest thing you ever go to. And it's the same. My point is, it's the teachers they're running back to. It ain't the owner of the college they're running back to and giving a hug that I did it. They're not high-fiving. They're out in the hallways. So you're absolutely right that it is that instructor that changed a path, made a mentorship moment for someone. Before we go back to one last question we ask everybody, is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
Yeah, I think that the spirit of collaboration that Michael, you and Jason Altmeyer of Career Education Colleges, Universities, the collaboration between our countries is so essential. I mean, we know that politics these days somehow has gotten itself so polarized that I'm not sure who it represents. Feel free to, I'm just going to go down as saying it's so polarized, at least in our country, that I'm not sure who they all think they're representing. They're representing the polar opposites just so that maybe we'll somehow end in the middle, when what we really, I think, crave is starting in the middle and getting good from there. And so I guess the reason I say that is because here you and Jason are leading your constituents to not erase the borders, of course, but to work across them and reach across them. I think that's one of the reasons why I so crave the ability to meld the Federal Aviation Administration and the Canadian Aviation Administration together through education to do some things together with one of your partner schools. And so that door is open just because our world needs collaboration, not aggravation. And so thank you for representing that.
Well, I appreciate your kind words. It was we had a board discussion about the event in Vegas this year around the table just to confirm that we all, and it was unanimous that we were committed to this partnership. We're mad at a couple of guys. We're not mad at Americans except in Canada.
Yeah.
So, but we are taking applications, as I said, in Vegas for any states that are interested in joining Canada. We've put together a little bit of a list already. There was a lot of joking around the 51st state for a while there, although I shouldn't joke because maybe he'll start again, but your president has stopped referring to us as a 51st state. We are prepared to add some provinces. We've looked at a few that look nice. Hawaii, we're looking at. Alaska makes sense.
Why can't you be a state and a province? Let's collaborate. Right?
We could do both, but the great camaraderie amongst our two nations that will survive this. There is a great video with some actors around the table, and I think it's Al Pacino, but there's Tom Hanks is one of them, and it's a kind of an actor's circle, and he says, "I wish I had known earlier that this too shall pass." And they all look at him, and he says, "When you're at the bottom of your career and nothing's going right, I wish I had known that this too shall pass, and eventually things will rise again." But then he also says, "But when you're at the top and everything's going your way, this
shall pass.
This will pass. This moment, we're pumped to have you guys come join us in Vancouver in November.
Can't wait.
Going to be awesome, and to host the North American Conference in Calgary in a couple of years, right in front of Stampede, is going to be awesome. Vegas was great. This too shall pass. So appreciate your kind words, and I'm looking forward to seeing the launch of English Advisory and see where you go with it. But I'm going to ask you the last question. We ask everybody 2 questions. Tell me a skill that makes Joel English successful. And is it something you had early on in life, or is it something you developed? And we ask these 2 questions about mentoring and skills because that's what our students come out of our colleges with. And I think you've got one. I guess what yours is, but what do you think your great skill is that's made you successful?
I think younger in my career, I would have said the ability to laugh and have fun, joke around, even when the work is hard. Bringing humor to stressful environments wins the favor of those you're working for. And I think that's a powerful, good thing. But I think the older I get and more experienced I get, the more honored I seem to be in helping either younger people or people new at ventures get into what they're doing and provide the kind of positive mentorship that Michael Klein gave me and that my father gave me. I remember a lot of younger professionals when my dad was probably about my age, and he would make a practice of just stopping everything and talking to them and encouraging them and showing them where they're brilliant, even when they feel like they're imbeciles. And I got to tell you, that's what I want to be doing, spending my time doing these days, inspiring the next generation. I'm not going anywhere. I've got a decade or more in me for sure. But I would like to spend that decade or decade and a half encouraging the next generation of leaders to inspire like Michael Klein did, hopefully inspire like I did, but really to give back. So I think I can probably combine those 2 answers, combine the humor and the inspiration, because I think when somebody can do that, that puts them in a ability where they can critically find what needs to improve, be the hardest worker in the room, have fun doing it, and maybe grab a beer at the end.
Oh, I can't agree. I was going to say like an infectious optimism, and you just reminded me of one of my pet peeves and favorite phrases. It's when someone says that's not a bad idea, I always turn around and go, so it's a good idea? And I think that's what you kind of just described. It's optimism when somebody comes up with something and moving forward. So Joel, I will also add on, I may have spent a night or 2 sitting in the bar in the lobby of the MGM Grand, and there may have been a conversation about you. You've mentored people that did make comments to me about your importance in the sector and your importance in the industry. And one individual that I was sitting with Vic Tazan, who's a very close friend who I think holds you in very high regard for the impact you've had on his career and his life. So, but I think what you want to do is what you're actually already doing. So keep going. I look forward to seeing you in Dallas. I hope the Cowboy fans will forgive my earlier bad analogy about their football team. But I do look forward to getting into Dallas around the end of September and seeing that movie, because I think it will benefit education.
I think so too, Michael. And I'll tell you what, when you come and view it, why don't you view it in these terms? Would a second screening make sense in Vancouver? I don't know. We'll take a look and see.
Would love to do that. I look forward to it. I think it's a great idea. And with that, we'll end this week's edition of the Ed Up Canada podcast. I apologize to Ian Ferris and Patrick Dion. We weren't able to get you on again this week, but I'm sure we'll find the schedule that fits for you. But Joel, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to people listening into next week's episode.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you a lot.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Ed Up Canada podcast. We release new episodes regularly, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when they are officially out. If you love this episode, please leave a 4- or 5-star review wherever you listen to your podcasts, so that others can also discover how a set of skills can lead to success. Thanks for learning with us.